I froze as the crisp stack of divorce papers landed on the polished wooden table. Sophie stood before me, arms crossed, a smirk curling on her lips. There was no hesitation, no guilt, just cruel amusement dancing in her eyes. "I've been with an incredible man for 8 months now," she declared, her voice laced with arrogance. "He's better than you in every way. And if you even think about touching him, I'll have you locked up." My blood boiled, but I stayed silent. Not because I was in shock. No, that had passed long ago. I had always known something was wrong. The late nights, the hushed whispers, the way she suddenly shielded her phone, as if I were some stranger rather than her husband of 8 years. I had noticed it all. What she didn't realize was that while she had been sneaking around, basking in her little affair, I had been preparing. Quietly, methodically, the pieces were already in place. And as she stood there, gloating over my supposed downfall, she had no idea that her entire world was about to collapse. I picked up the divorce papers, flipping through them like they were nothing more than a casual work document. Then, with a calmness that made her smirk falter, I simply nodded. "You want a divorce?" I asked smoothly. "Fine." She blinked. She had expected rage, begging a fight, anything but this. Instead, I leaned back, my tone almost amused. "Get your things," I said. "You won't be staying here." Her lips parted slightly. "What?" I gestured around. "This house. Mine. Your car? Mine. Our bank accounts? Joint." Well, they were, until I moved the majority of the money into my private account. I let out a slow chuckle. "Your little comfortable life? Gone." Her confidence wavered for the first time, but she recovered quickly. "I'll just move in with him." I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "Oh, you mean Damien?" The color drained from her face. "Bullseye. How do you know his name?" she whispered. I chuckled. "Oh, Sophie, did you really think you could have an affair for 8 months, and I wouldn't find out?" She stiffened. I raised a hand, cutting her off. "Let me tell you a story," I said smoothly. "A man finds out his wife is cheating. He doesn't react. Instead, he investigates. And what does he find?" I let the words hang in the air, letting her stew in her own anxiety before continuing. He finds out that her lover isn't the successful businessman she thinks he is. That this incredible man is actually drowning in debt. That he's been living in a rented apartment, paid for by his rich older brother. That he has 3 failed businesses. And worst of all, I leaned in, watching her breath hitch. He has a nasty habit of borrowing money from the wrong people. Sophie looked like she was about to be sick. "You're lying," she choked out. I pulled out my phone and slid it across the table. "Am I?" With trembling hands, she picked it up and scrolled through the screenshots. Records of Damien's debts. Legal documents showing the money he owed. Evidence of his financial ruin. All laid out in front of her like a nightmare unfolding in real time. Her eyes flickered up to mine, wide with disbelief. "Still think he's better than me in every way?" I asked, arching a brow. Her hands shook. "But don't worry," I said, standing up. "You'll have plenty of time to figure things out. Since, I gestured toward the door. "You won't be staying here." She refused at first. "You can't kick me out," she hissed. I laughed. "Oh, Sophie, I already did." That's when she realized. Her credit cards declined. Her bank account emptied. Her belongings, already packed in a suitcase by the door. "You," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "You took everything." I smiled. "No, sweetheart. You threw everything away." Her hands trembled as she grabbed her phone, dialing Damien in a panic. I watched amused as her face fell. Straight to voicemail. "Oh right, I mused. I forgot to mention Damien. He's in trouble." Her head snapped up. "What did you do?" I sighed, feigning sympathy. I simply accelerated the inevitable. The reality hit her all at once. Damien was gone. She had nothing left. No money. No home. No backup plan. Desperate, she turned back to me, her voice breaking. "Nathan, I made a mistake." I stared at her, utterly unmoved. "Yes," I said simply. "You did." She took a shaky step forward. "Please, Nathan. Just one more chance." I looked her dead in the eyes and delivered the final blow. "I wouldn't take you back if you were the last woman on earth." She let out a choked sob. I turned away. Sophie stood frozen in the doorway. The same woman who had once thrown divorce papers in my face, now utterly powerless. You should have thought about that, I said calmly, sipping my drink, before you threw away your life for a man who's currently running for his. Her face twisted in horror. What do you mean? I smirked. Oh, Sophie, did you really think Damien could just walk away from his debts? That his business partners wouldn't notice he's been living large on borrowed money? Her voice trembled. Where is he? I checked my watch. Probably halfway to nowhere by now. But those people he owes. I tilted my head. They don't forget. She stumbled back, gripping the doorframe, as if her knees were about to give out. Tears streamed down her face. By morning the news broke. Local businessman Damien Clark disappears amid financial scandal. Authorities investigate possible connections to organized crime. I smirked as I read the headline, sipping my coffee. Perfect. Damien had skipped town, knowing full well what was coming. His debts, his fraudulent deals, his dangerous connections, all exposed. I had made sure of it. And Sophie? She had spent the night calling, texting, begging. But there was no answer. She was completely alone. Days later, she showed up at my door. Tear-streaked. Makeup ruined. A shadow of the woman who had once smirked at me in victory. Nathan, she whispered. Can we talk? I set my coffee down, meeting her desperate gaze. Talk about what? She wiped at her face. Us. I raised an eyebrow. There is no us. Her breath hitched. Please, I know I messed up, but I don't want to lose you. I stared at her for a long moment, then chuckled darkly. You don't want to lose me? I repeated. Sophie, you threw me away for him. She opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. You humiliated me, looked me in the eye and said he was better than me in every way. I leaned closer, voice razor-sharp. How's that working out for you? She flinched. I was stupid, she whispered. I leaned back, smirking. Yes, you were. Nathan, I love you. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head. No, you love the life I gave you. She reached for my hand. I pulled away. You'll figure it out, I said coldly. And then I walked away. Sophie left that morning with nothing. And me? I was free. Stronger than ever. Because she made the mistake of thinking I was weak. But I never lose.